So now I've got all that cord made. This is the starter piece. So all we do here is just trim your threads here, back and front. Just keep that starter piece, it's always handy to have. Now I haven't finished off this end because I don't know if I've made enough cord for the width of the brim I want to make. I'm just going to demonstrate on a little toddler's hat here so we get it done quite quickly, but all the steps I take here making this small one is exactly what you do for any size. It'd just be a lot more sewing. So I've left this end free so that if I need to add more strips I can come back, join the next piece on here with the 45-degree angle join, trim it back, add some more wadding and keep sewing. But remember, when you get to the end, you need to taper it off like we tapered off the beginning. Okay, and we'll show you why as we construct the hat. So now roll this into a ball because if you don't, it's all going to get tangled absolutely everywhere, all around where you are. So as you're rolling this, make sure it's not twisted. Okay, keep it nice and straight and just keep rolling it into a little ball. So it ends up like this. Okay, it's a lot easier to handle when it's like this. Now, the next step we need to take, we're going to start making the crown, that top piece. So at your ironing board, I always have my little work board right alongside me where I'm stitching, so I'm not up and down all the time. We're going to need to curl this into a tight circle. So it can be an oval. Like when I started making this bigger hat, I felt that I needed more of an oval shape to start with. So I let this be a little bit longer here, but you know, you'll adjust as you go along. So we're going to use the Roxanne glue base. Now don't forget this, if you've not used this glue before, it will wash out, so you can wash the hat when it's finished. The fusible in the wadding will wash out. Now I'm going to now iron this. I'm just going to put these two pieces together. Now I've got glue there, but the glue's not going to stick to my iron, so don't panic. This is why I use the products I use, because they do work perfectly. So just put the iron on this to set the glue. Like you could pin this into the ironing board and go away and have a cup of coffee, and when you come back it'll be dry, but I usually just glue. So now I'm going to put some more glue along the edge here. Now what we have to be aware of, this open edge where we folded the fabric over, that needs to be always on the outside edge. Okay, don't have it the other way around, so that you don't want to be gluing this edge, you want to be gluing the complete folded edge. And we're going to roll this around. So I'm going to continue ironing this till I get about 2 or 3 rounds ironed, because that's going to make it much easier for me to do the stitching. Now when I start stitching, I'm going to start with the open toe foot on my machine. But after I stitch out a little way, I'm going to stop and I'll change to the stitch in the ditch foot. Because if I use the stitch in the ditch foot here now, as I start stitching, it's going to all get caught up in that bulk. So I find I have to stop and change feet, but that's okay. It only takes 5 seconds to do that. I just need a bit more glue in here. You know, and if the glue gets on your ironing surface, just get a wet cloth and dab it off. It'll come off, and it gets all over your fingers though. So we'll just do a little bit more, and then we're completely done, and we can start sewing. So I'm going to use the same colour thread as what I did my straight stitching with, just a plain white thread. A nice strong thread's good, because this hat will probably get a lot of wear, a lot of washing, a lot of throwing around, a lot of squashing up. Like these be fabulous things to make for gifts for people. Okay, so now we've got enough of that ironing done. So we're now going to go to the machine. We're going to set up our machine with the zigzag. Now you don't want to have the zigzag too close together, because if you do, you will be stitching for hours. So just a normal zigzag. I test it out a bit, but I'll probably go to about 5.5 in my width, and I'll go up to about 2.2 or 2.3 in my length. So that will now get us started, but you might want to do a test and find out what suits with you. Now, I like to put my roll over my shoulder. I like it coming from over the back of me, so maybe put a basket or something down. Put this over your shoulder because you want it to come over the shoulder like such, because we don't want to stretch it. If we start to stretch this as we start to stitch, we're in big trouble. The hat will go all wobbly, so holding it the way I'm showing you would be the way to go. So now I'm just going to start zigzagging right at that middle piece. And then come out to the second round, and we'll just start zigzagging. Now you may have to lift the foot here a little bit to get around. Now I find that my width is just too much. I've just got it too open. So I lift my needle up, and this is where you need to do the adjusting. So you just need to adjust on your machine to get a good density, but remember, don't have it too close because you'll be using up so much thread. And I do recommend you have a bobbin or two feel ready for this, because it does, the zigzag does take up quite a bit of your thread. So now you can appreciate why I've glued this, because if I had to have my fingers right in here, it'd be just too dangerous for me. So around we come. And you get yourself in a bit of a knot here, but it'll come out quite nicely real soon. Okay, so now we're getting out to where we've got no gluing. So you can see here I've got this all twisted, so I lift my needle, lift my pressure foot. I'm going to cut the thread. And now I'm going to change to my other foot and get all this out. Just a little bit of fiddling, but it is worth changing feet. Because if you don't get the zigzag accurate on both sides, you'll have a gap and it won't be nice. Okay, so put this foot on. Right, now we're ready to get started and really get into it, and this is where we'll start to talk about the shape and how many rounds. But I'm only making a toddler one, so I'm only going to do probably another 1 or 2 rounds here, and then I'm going to start shaping it for the sides. So what I do is I sew here, I'm keeping that blade of that foot right in between the 2 rows of cord so that it pulls it together as we come around. And I've just missed a bit there. It can be quite tricky, but I can go back and fix that up a bit later. So now we don't want to pull this. You'll be very tempted to want to pull this cord to get around the corners. So what we'd like you to do is put it between your finger and thumb, like so, and just let it glide. Now, having that slippery mat on there, it's allowing this to just glide around beautifully. I'll get rid of this starting thread. And you can probably see where I missed that zigzag a bit, but I'll go back and fix that up a bit later on. And those are the things that can happen, but they're easy fixable. So now I think I've got this big enough to make a little tiny hat. So now what I'm going to do is start lifting this off the surface of the machine. So I don't want to go up too high, I just want to keep it just a little bit up. I'm going to do 2 rounds like this. Just holding my cord, holding this up a bit. Now, I've missed another spot there, so that's really bad stitching on my part. But let's go back and fix it before we go too much further. And this is where it's really tricky at the beginning. So don't worry if you make a mistake here, it's very fixable. As we'll do now. Just come back and re-zigzag. So make sure that your machine tension's right. Make sure you're not skipping stitches. And that's why I strongly recommend that titanium top stitch needle, because it will go through the thickness beautifully for you. So now we're lifting it up, as I said before, just for 2 rounds. And you can probably start to see where this is. Oh, I ran off a bit more there, goodness me. So now I've done my 2 rounds, so I'm going to now lift this up higher. So we're holding it up, right up high now. Keep the 2 pieces of cord sitting right against each other, because this is what's giving us our shape. Now once you get out a little bit further, it gets so much easier to do. Just those first half a dozen rounds that makes it difficult. So I want this coming up quite high now to really get that shape happening. Get my edges together. But remember, please don't stretch as we come around. Otherwise, it just is not going to sit nicely for you. It will be a horrible shape. So you just keep going around, holding this up as high as you can get it to create that side. And then we'll just keep sewing until we get it to the right shape and the right size that we need it to fit the top of the head of the person you're making this for. Then we stop sewing and then we start joining the brim on. The same way. So you can see that it's starting to give us the shape that we need. So we just keep sewing. I'm going to do probably another 5 or 6 rounds, and then we're going to show you how to do the brim. So just keep stitching away. We've got our shape. You can see how I've been holding this up, and now I've created the crown and the side. So now we're coming back to our tapered end. So what we're going to do here, just go a little bit slower. Come in, and you're going to push this up inside the hat. This is the inside of the hat. We're just going to stitch along here a bit slower. Just continue stitching along. And there we go. So you can see now exactly how that's going to sit in there. Now that'll just, as we come and put the brim on, the stitching's going to pick up this little bit of a tail here and help it sit in there a lot flatter. So now with our brim, we've got the next lot made up, ready. So what we're going to do, well, we'll just let you have a look at this first. So here's our shape of the hat. Now, you know, we can do all sorts of things with it later on. No? So it's just very, very easy. So we'll now start to show you how we're going to put this other piece on. But what we need to do, this is the inside of the hat. We need to turn it inside out. Because if we don't turn it inside out, when we start stitching the brim on, we'll be going the opposite way. So we turn it inside out, so we continue coming around here. So let's show you how to do that. Okay, so we've turned the hat inside out. We've got our end join here. Now this is our next piece that we're going to put on for the brim. We want the open edge to the outside. And I'm crossing it over. You can see how this is where the tail is here. This one's going to sit up here. And we'll start zigzagging right from there. So we'll put the edge of this foot right, or the centre of that blade right against here. Just take it steady to start with. There's a little bit of bulk there. Now we'll just join these together. Oh, I'm just going to have to lift that foot up a bit to get over a bit of that bulk. So now this is where our join was here, or our finish. See how this guide is sitting between the two pieces of fabric. Now this is definitely where you don't want to stretch the fabric. So over your shoulder, between the thumb and finger, and just let it glide. Now you just have to keep squashing this down. So we're not going to raise it up anymore. We want to keep it completely flat. Oops, running out of thread. So we just keep coming around and stitching. So now just keep that guide of the foot in between the two pieces. Keep it flat, but please don't stretch, because you want the brim to sit nice and flat on the hat. And you're just going to continue around now till you get the brim as wide as you need it. So just run it between your fingers and thumb. Now when you finish it off, when you get around to the other end and you get to finish it, when you get the brim to the width you want it, you'll just taper the end off like I've showed you, and you will just run it off like we did when we finished the sides, where we started to join the brim on. So it's very fast at this stage. It gets really, can really pick up speed. Now having that mat on underneath, I found if I didn't have that slippery mat, I was really pushing this through. So the mat's absolutely essential, I think, to allow this just to pivot around easy without you having to push it too hard with your hands. Now we're back now to where we started, so we'll just keep going. Just take it steady over that little bit of bulk. And after that it becomes very, very easy. And as I said before, where you've got started and finished, that is a little bit bulky, but once you wash the hat, that'll soften right down and you won't even know it's there. But remember, we're stitching this on from the inside of the hat. This part here is the inside. You'll notice I'm not stretching, I'm just laying it down, letting the machine do all the work. You know, when you finish, you've just got a beautiful thing ready for that giveaway as a gift, or to use for one of your children, or for yourself, or make it for your partner, your husband, your son, your daughter, whoever. You know, it'd be a one-of-a-kind hat. Nobody else will have one like it. So you can see how quick it becomes now. I'm on my third round of the brim. So if I decided I want this brim to be about 3 inches wide, I'd just keep a tape measure close by, and I'd be measuring from where I started out till I got to the 3 inches, and then I'd just finish it off. So let's have a little look at it. I'm going to take it out from under the machine so we can look at it, because that's all we do. You don't need to sit here and watch me continually stitch this, but we need to turn it into the right way. Oh, look at that. Look how cute that is. What a beautiful little hat. Turn it the right way out. And there you go. Like, that'd be gorgeous on any little girl. I've got a few threads there that I need to trim up, but I'd be keeping on going because I'd like to make that brim. I think I'd like to make it about 3 inches wide, but you can see this is where our join is. This is where we started and stopped. You don't feel any bulk there. It's all settled in nicely. You just need to go back and trim up any of the threads. You can push the crown down in if you want. You'll be able to turn the brim up. But that's exactly how I've made all of these hats. And I'd love to see photos of yours, because I think every one you're going to make is going to get better and better and look nicer and nicer. And having that wadding in there, the brim sits nicely. It's firm, it's not soft, it's not floppy, but you'll be able to, you know, mould it to any shape you want. It'll just take the shape that you want it to be. So I hope you've enjoyed the lesson, and share it with your friends. Tell your friends to have a look how to make these hats, because they are cute. And being able to make them any size, working with the pattern and the number of strips and that you need, you'll be the best dressed person out there. So thank you for joining me. Remember, go to our website, www.pqw.com.au. Have a look at all the products, because getting the right products is what makes the job easy for you, and you get a very neat finish. So till we see you next time, bye for now.